This is BBC News, the headlines at 3 o'clock. Ecuador grants asylum to the Wikileaks founder Julian Assange 2 months after he first took refuge in its London embassy to avoid extradition to Sweden.
The Ecuadorian government, loyal to its tradition to protect those who seek refuge with us and in our diplomatic missions, has decided to grant diplomatic asylum to Mr. Assange.
Julian Assange watched the decision being announced live on a television feed. His supporters here have been cheering. The UK government says it is disappointed.
Locked-in syndrome sufferer Tony Nicholson has lost his High Court battle for the legal right to end his life with a doctor's help.
Unfortunately for me, it means yet another period of physical discomfort and mental anguish while we find out who controls my life, me or the state.
Capping the cost of care, indications that the government is serious about limiting the amount spent on caring for the elderly.
The Prime Minister's former spin doctor Andy Coulson is among 6 former News of the World journalists and a private investigator who've appeared in court over phone hacking.
Also coming up in the next hour, a fall in the number of top A-level grades for the first time in more than 20 years. Thousands of students in England, Wales and Northern Ireland are collecting their results. The Olympic medalist Tom Daley is amongst those celebrating.
I got my A-level results today, and so far I'm on an A-star in photography, an A in Spanish and an A in AS Maths, so 3 A's.
And England cricketers going pretty well on the opening day of the final test against South Africa at Lord's.
Good afternoon. Ecuador has announced that it will grant asylum to the Wikileaks founder Julian Assange. Mr. Assange has been staying at the country's London embassy for the past 2 months to avoid extradition to Sweden.
Well, Ecuador's Foreign Minister Ricardo Patino said there was a danger that Mr. Assange might be extradited from Sweden to the United States to face charges over the leaking of US diplomatic cables.
The Ecuadorian government, loyal to its tradition to protect those who seek refuge with us and in our diplomatic missions, has decided to grant diplomatic asylum to Mr. Assange. The citizen Julian Assange, by the President of the Republic of Ecuador, this day, and on the request for asylum made on the 25th of June. Because of the fears expressed by Mr. Assange, we believe that his fears are legitimate, and there are the threats that he could face political persecution if the measures aren't taken to avoid them. The government of Ecuador is confident that the British government will know how to answer to this request and in agreement with this, and we trust that the United Kingdom will offer as soon as possible the guarantee for the safe passage for the asylum of Mr. Assange, and that they would respect those international agreements that they have signed in the past and that they have always respected. And we also trust, unalterable, that our friendship with the United Kingdom will remain intact, because we share the respect for the same values of human rights and democracy and peace, which is only possible once human rights and fundamental human rights are respected.
That was the Ecuadorian Foreign Minister Ricardo Patino. Well, let's get more now with our correspondent Tim Reid, who joins us from outside Ecuador's embassy in central London this afternoon. Tim, good afternoon to you. What was the reaction outside the embassy when this news was delivered?
Well, as the news filtered through the pretty large crowds and the large number of supporters of Julian Assange as the decision was made in Quito, there was a cheer from here. Many of Julian Assange's supporters have been celebrating the fact that he has been granted that political asylum. We understand that he himself was watching with a dozen or so members of the Ecuadorian embassy officials from there. He thanked them for their help over the past few weeks and says that this has been a significant victory, but he also says that things are going to get a bit more stressful from here on in, and that is because clearly the next steps are not known. Whether the UK government will do as it said and revoke the embassy's diplomatic status, whether he will try to come out and be taken elsewhere, that is clearly not clear. But for the moment, certainly the crowds who had gathered here earlier on today are happy that he's been granted that political asylum. The UK government, on the other hand, has expressed its disappointment. It says it had hoped that there would be some diplomatic resolution to this, but from the war of words that we've heard already today between the two governments, I think that is some way off.
Yes, Tim, it is quite difficult to see where this goes from here now, because as you rightly point out, he either has to be given safe passage to the airport to leave the country, or the UK authorities will go in and extract him.
Yeah, so there are three options really: that he stays inside there where he's been for 56 days, but he presumably can't stay there forever. He can come out and be taken presumably in a diplomatic car to a train station or a railway station. The UK authorities have said that they will certainly they plan to carry out the extradition to Sweden, and that would presumably mean stopping that vehicle and waiting for him to get out and arresting him then, or is that third option where they suspend the diplomatic mission behind me and arrest Julian Assange inside there. Those three options, clearly no one knows at this stage what is going to happen next, and that is it's clearly something that the UK authorities will be deciding what their next step is. Quito has already said that it plans to give him safe passage and to give him that political asylum, as we've heard.
And Tim, we heard from a former ambassador to Russia earlier on today who was very keen that the UK government not take that course of action and go in and extract him, because he was making the point that that then makes other foreign nationals vulnerable to the same kind of action in other countries.
Yeah, Ricardo Patino, clearly the foreign minister, was very angry at the beginning of that news conference where he announced the decision, saying that the UK authorities had no right to threaten Ecuador in the way it had done, and saying, yes, that it would have implications for the two countries and their diplomacy. But if the UK government was to suspend this mission here and do what it says it is able to do and go in and arrest Julian Assange, that would have implications clearly for diplomatic missions around the world, for embassies where people you see them as a slice of that country's sovereignty and where people, it's their last refuge. And if that is done away with, then clearly there will be some ramifications not just for Ecuador and British relations but for other countries as well.
OK, Tim Reid in central London, thank you very much.